Hey everyone, MLive's Quinn here alongside Michigan football beat writer, the astute Nick Baumgardner.
All right.
Fresh off publishing a very nice story this morning on Jim Harbaugh and his ties to Ann Arbor. If you haven't had a chance,
Scroll on Thursday.
Scroll down.
It's Tuesday. This is going to be on Thursday. We're filming it on Tuesday.
Yeah, but
okay. You said this morning.
All right. 2 mornings ago, Nick ran a very nice story.
All right. There we go.
So go back and read it. But welcome to the Wolverine Beat. This is our weekly rambling look at Michigan football. We try to tackle some of your questions, talk about the topics of the day, and that's it. Welcome back. Hope you guys have been enjoying the series. We are. So I guess let's jump into it this week. I think Nick put out a Twitter question, right? Or a call for questions and got a decent response.
Yeah, we can just go through them if we want. I mean, we can break the game down. You want to break the game down?
Sure.
Want to do that first? You want to go to the questions?
Let's break the game down. You were in Utah.
Yes.
You made it back from Utah.
Long travel day, but I did, yes.
Yeah. Your impressions, I guess, of maybe not just the performance. That's obviously been talked about ad nauseum, but how the team responded to road environment, the real takeaways you can take you left with other than X's and O's. You know, maybe what does the team tell you about the group dynamic?
I think that their discipline, I guess, is probably the one thing that kept kind of creeping up in my head. And it wasn't really like, I heard people say that they thought they were more intense or they competed harder. And I'm not sure if that's fair or accurate because I think they were intense and competed hard last year too. They just sort of knew where to go a little bit better this time. So just, they were cleaner, not too many penalties. Obviously the interceptions are a huge issue, and that's, basically why they lost the game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, take those 3 interceptions away and, a couple of those missed opportunities vertically in the passing game, they win the football game. So, they didn't shoot themselves in the foot. They didn't reel off the tracks. I mean, they didn't just completely collapse. Even after the interception for a touchdown, they came back and went like 80, 85 yards in maybe 2.5 minutes, something like that, 3 minutes, whatever it was, which that's probably not happened here in probably 2 or 3 years. I mean, I can't remember a drive that crisp. I don't care what time of the game it was.
Yep.
So that's not really trash time. I think that's a accurate, something was going on there. So I think that there's positives for them. But at the end of the day, this is a flawed team. It's going to take them a while to sort of get everything going.
How deep are the flaws?
I don't know. I mean, the one that I really like to know how deep it is, and I think we'll start to find that out Saturday, is the offensive line. Rudock's issues, I guess we'll go to him first. Rudock is who he is. Those mistakes, I would assume he cleans up because that's just never been his bag.
His MO is not throwing.
He's not a turnover guy. I think that 2 of those were bad routes. By Grant Perry, the last one, Rudock shouldn't have thrown the football, but the route was still pretty choppy. His footwork was all over the place. End of the day, I don't think that's something that's going to be a recurring deal. I don't think we're going to see Jake Rudock throw 15, 16 picks. I don't think that's going to be a thing. So I don't know if that's a deep issue. I do think he's the best quarterback that they have. He didn't take any sacks, which was very evident to me. I mean, if that game had happened last season with Baumgardner in there, there's a lot of those plays that end with a 9-10 yard loss. Rudock gets rid of the football, stands in there, and does what he needs to do. So
maybe Shane Morris as well.
Yeah, exactly. Positives there, negatives of course too, but it is what it is. He's not the end all answer to the program's ultimate success, but he's basically a stopgap, and that's what he'll be. Offensive line, that's the one that I'd like to see because it was still a lot of technique, bad habits. You look at the guards. Kyle Kalis and Ben Braden had a really rough go, and a lot of it was coming out of a stance and then just standing straight up, straight up in the air, and you're straight up in the air, and you're 6'5", 6'6", and there's a defensive tackle right in your chest. I mean, you're done. The whole play's done. You've blown it up, and that's just a bad habit. That's just lack of technique and lack of attention to detail. And if that's a one-time thing, then it's fine. But it's not a one-time thing because it's happened for years. And if that doesn't get fixed, this team's gonna have a rough go because if they can't run the ball, Jake Rudock's not gonna throw for 5,000 yards. I mean, that's not gonna happen.
Sure. You were a one-time offensive lineman, weren't you?
Yeah, back in the day, man. Like another life ago. Yeah.
How was your pad level?
Well, I was short, so my pad level was fine. But if I can't imagine how these guys that are 6'5", 6'6", they got to get a good bend going. They say you got to be able to bend. So mine was fine. But,
a default low pad level.
Yeah, I was just short and squat anyway, so it worked out. But hey, it's not easy, but that's a technique, and that's something that those guys work on. It's not lack of strength. Kyle Kalis is huge, great athlete. Ben Braden might be the most athletic lineman they have. and it's technique. It's standing up straight. You know, those guys are going to pull a lot in this offense in power schemes, and some of the pulls went into the wrong hole. Some of the pulls missed guys. Some of them bellied out too far, and you know what I'm saying, when they belly out when you're coming down the line,
right,
and you take 3 or 4 steps back and start yourself back up, that's just wasted movement. So there's a lot of that was going on. It can certainly be cleaned up, but at the same time, how long do you go before you start saying, well, maybe Ben Braden just doesn't have this, we got to give somebody else a shot? I don't know. Ben Braden won the job out of camp, so again, you kind of keep looking at this as like, that was the best 11 they had. That wasn't on accident.
Yeah.
So
I would think before you start changing,
no, I don't
pulling
think that's the answer.
I'd at least get through the BYU game.
Yeah.
I would think. I mean, you got to let these guys try to get some continuity and some cohesion.
We've seen
over some time.
We've seen the story of how it works when you just start plugging and pulling. I mean, that was 2013. It was just a total mess. You're putting guys in that weren't ready because you were panicking.
Right.
And you would have, in the end of the season, you probably would have been better off if you just stuck with the first 5. And
I think the tone of the conversation is going to be completely different next week. UNLV is arguably
that's the
worst
cream puff they have.
The worst program in the country.
Run by a high school coach.
At this level. Yeah,
Literally.
I mean,
he was coaching high school.
God love that guy. You know, hopefully he does well. It's an amazing story.
It's happened before a couple times.
It's
never worked out.
It's an amazing story, but I mean that they had to resort to hiring a high school coach for a reason. That wasn't just like a genius move. Everyone else was like, I'm good. Thanks, Rebels. So I mean, for all you know, if they go out and they roll 50-0 this weekend, I think it could be a very different.
The difference is you got to look for the things that they struggle with and look to see if they've improved on them. Their talent should beat Oregon State. They're better. They're more talented.
Right.
But winning the game because you're more talented is one thing, but winning the game if you're improving, you're seeing noticeable improvement in the fundamentals of your offensive line, and that's a really big plus.
Right.
If the receivers are more crisp in their routes and Rudock has better timing with them, that's a plus. Those are the things you look at this week and you say that the things that they were bad at last week, if those things are improved, that's like a double win. If you get the win, that's obviously the most important thing, but if those things are improved, then then you're going somewhere, and that's ultimately the deal here.
I'm expecting them to have pretty much overmatched though these next 2.
Yeah,
that's why I'm saying the BYU game is my mark.
UNLV more so than Oregon State.
Yeah, definitely. I think they handle Oregon State pretty easily this weekend. And I think you will find some improvement week to week. But in terms of changing anything or doing stuff like that, I would circle the BYU game as kind of the final measuring stick of what decisions were made in the preseason, and were they right? Obviously, if there's a massive hole, you make changes along the way, but I feel like that's a good before game look into it. But all right, on to the questions.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's see.
Now, reminder, these are we're going to try to field questions from Twitter for these weeks during the season. Nick is at Big Daddy MLive. I am. He's actually at Nick Baumgardner, and I am at BF Quinn. You can follow us, send us a question, and we'll try to get to it during the week.
This is an easy one because we've gotten a bunch on this topic basically from.
Is it about the quarterbacks?
Yeah, from Kelly Jean on Twitter asks with several freshman quarterbacks having success, I assume across the country, which that's fair. Would Harbaugh consider using Zach Gentry this year? Is that redshirt important? And I can combo that with the 4 or 5 other people that have asked why Shane Morris isn't playing. But I guess first with Kelly's question about Gentry, he didn't even travel, so I would assume that he's going to redshirt. I would assume that's how that's going to be. The only time I would have thought maybe they would have, and maybe they will at some point. Maybe they put him in some sort of. He's gigantic. He's 6'7", 260 pounds. Maybe he has a special running package. Otherwise, I think he redshirts. But at the same time, I also don't know if Harbaugh, these redshirts, he deals with them a little bit differently, it seems like to me, than Hoke or other coaches would, in that he's talked about that 5th year being, that's my decision if you could come back or not. Basically saying, like, if you're not good enough to play the first year, then you're not playing. And that's not me making a conscious decision down the road of I want to bank this guy an extra year. He can't help me right now. So, all right, he just won't play. And if I can find a crack for him to get in here, he'll play. I don't know if that's really on top of his radar. So the only way I think Zach Gentry sees the field would be in some sort of special package. But I don't think that's even close. I think at the end of the day, like we've said 100 times already, Rudock's quarterback. Right. And Shane Morris lost the quarterback battle. Harbaugh was crystal clear on that without coming out and saying right down to the finite detail. I mean, to steal one of his lines, I don't know how much more clear he can make it. I mean, Rudock won the job, and he is the best answer that this team has, and that means, yes, he is ahead of Shane Morris, probably in a number of areas and measurables. And yeah, that does say something about Shane and where he's at, and there it is. So that's what they got to deal with.
When Harbaugh was asked yesterday about when and why Rudock won the job, he said that he kind of struggled with the first 5 days or so of preseason, and then found his rhythm and was day in and day out better.
And then it was just
better
obvious.
than Morris.
Yeah, wasn't even a decision.
And
sounded like
the word he kept using was consistency.
Yeah.
So it's one of those deals. Yeah, Shane has that big cannon. He can throw the ball, and he can sometimes make a pass that just looks really pretty, and you say, oh, maybe he could be the real deal. But
there's so much more.
It looks like Harbaugh just wants a guy who is reliable in there. And
yeah, I mean,
if that was. If Rudock had thrown 1 interception instead of 3, obviously we wouldn't even be having this conversation, and that's not a completely ridiculous hypothetical, because two of them weren't really on him 100%.
No. But at the same time, though, he still is a senior. He's got to make those throws. He's got to be better. At the same time, he's not. This isn't the addition of. It's not like signing Peyton Manning in free agency. And I think some people convinced themselves that that's what this was, and it's not. This is a guy who.
Last year,
lost his job at Iowa, frankly, and the name is now slipping me. I don't know why it's gonna. Iowa's new quarterback, C.J. Beathard. There you go. Looked like he fit their system better, and it looked like he won that job for a reason last week. Jake Rudock is he can be a decent Big Ten quarterback. I don't think he proclaims to be anything more than that. I don't think he proclaims to be the best thing in the world. I mean, there's limitations there, but at the end of the day, there's consistency also in that. He's not going to take sacks. He's going to complete passes for the most part when they're there. Yeah, he's got to be better with decision making. He's got to be better with chemistry with his receivers. But also, there's this thing about Jim Harbaugh's been a quarterback since he was about yay high. If he says that Jake Rudock's the best quarterback on the team, I think I'd probably just take his word for it.
Right.
I mean, that's not even a discussion. I mean, this guy knows quarterbacks better than anybody else in this town.
And I mean, to leapfrog.
That's a fair statement.
To go from. Why isn't Morris playing? To that and asking about Zach Gentry. Who,
well, that's a separate conversation.
Never even seen.
In Kelly's defense, that was a separate thing. I think it was more of a.
But it's the same conversation.
Yeah, it is. But I think it was also, is there some sort of special? I don't know. But
and just to remind, I mean, we haven't been able to see him practice. We have no idea what Gentry's been.
Well, he went on the travel roster. And Wilton Spate and Alex Malzone travel. And Gentry's not even on the depth chart. So my assumption is that he's in no way ready to play, and if they had any emergency, their emergency guys would be Spate or Malzone. So that's my guess on that one.
By the way, I do think it was pretty generous of you to look at me for the answer of who is Iowa's quarterback.
C.J. Beathard for future reference. I was just completely lost. I don't know why, but we wrote that a bunch of times
about astrophysics or something.
Here's one from Scott G. Scotty, 62. Michigan hasn't had a dependable field goal kicker in a while. Is this a priority at this stage of rebuilding? I think it is a priority. And I think what was interesting on Saturday or Thursday is you saw, and anybody who's a good lip reader, when Kenny Allen missed that 44-yard field goal, the cameras went right to Harbaugh, and he said, I should have gone for it, which basically says Kenny Allen's, he can handle extra points, he can handle the 30-something and on in, but he doesn't have the big leg, and he doesn't have a thing. And that's the difference ultimately between coaching in the NFL and coaching in college, because when you're in the NFL, and this might have been brought up in the broadcast, I think it actually was, and it was a great point. When you're in the NFL and you cross a certain yard marker, in your head it's, I've got 3, I can do other things. But at this point, if you don't have a reliable guy, and I think Harbaugh eventually would love to have, they've offered scholarships to get They tried to get Quinn Nordine, the top-ranked, and I think they're still actually recruiting him, the kid that committed to Penn State. He would love to have one because I think he'd love to be able to coach that way. But he's got to remember that he doesn't have one, and maybe when you get across the 35 or whatever it is, maybe you're still in maybe a 4-down mode, depending on how far you can get down the field. So I thought that was interesting, and that the immediate gut reaction was we should have gone for that.
Yeah, and they showed it live on TV. I mean, I know you were up in the booth, but they pointed that out on the live broadcast for everyone like me who was watching in Ann Arbor.
That's just weighing your odds. I mean, that's understanding your kicker.
Yeah. And, well, first of all, now's probably a good time for some good old-fashioned Penn State poaching coming off that loss to Temple. So I'd go right after that kicker if I were them. But
I'm sure they already have. I mean, they're still recruiting him, so that's not over with.
But the other thing, we kind of play off of that. what could be interesting is when they get into situations of long potential field goals, 47-yard or 46-yard or something like that, the fact that you now have Blake O'Neal looking like he could possibly be a bit of a weapon as a punter and pin guys.
That punt was pretty sweet.
You might
the one that he had.
There might be situations where you say 50-50 shot on a 47-yarder or have a reliable kicker. You think you can put him inside the 10.
I think it depends on the situation of the game.
Play the field goal. Play the field position game.
In that situation, they were down.
Yeah,
they needed points. Right. So in that situation, I think maybe you're more aggressive and you probably go for it. But I agree. I mean, if it's a close situation, you might see a lot of punting where Blake O'Neal's standing on his own side of the wrong side of the 50, I guess, in a punting situation, because he appears to have the ability to pin somebody deep. And this is a team that's going to have to rely on its defense and special teams to sort of overcome what appears to be a lack of explosiveness on the offense. Now that said, Michigan's offense, the specialty players, we're going on a tangent here, but the specialty players, the Darbo, Jake Butt, Grant Perry struggled at times, but I thought there was moments where he looked okay. Those receivers, those pass catchers that we wondered about, and Jay Chesson, I think they're going to be okay. I mean, Darbo looked very good. Looked like a really reliable Big Ten receiver, which we thought he was. Jake Butt looked like an All-American. I don't think I'm speaking too crazy there. And Chesson looked like that was, his route running was as good as it's ever been.
They showed more separation than I expected.
Yeah, and Darbo even showed more quicks than I thought he had. Yeah. So I think they're going to be fine there. People kept asking me about Drake Harris, and I think we've got other questions in there about Drake Harris. Why wasn't he targeted? Why would he have been? I mean, Darbo was making plays. Chesson was getting open.
It's not like Rudock was thrown into double
Grant
coverage.
Perry was he sprung Darbo on 2 great blocks and rebounded enough at the end of the game where he makes a couple nice catches on that last drive. I mean, I think, that's a promising, if you want to talk about areas of optimism, there's one right there. I think you found a couple players might be able to do something. Maybe.
It was a hell of a special teams answer.
But yeah, so long. When is Drake, I assume this is Drake Johnson, when is Drake Johnson expected to be back in the field, from Chris on Twitter? It's interesting because it sounded like last week Harbaugh was more like, don't expect him to play this week. This week I think he'd like to have him, but I don't know if he's going to get him.
The fact that he's not listed on the depth chart. Maybe if he was in that 5th hole, you could say, maybe they'll throw him in there and just try to get him up to speed.
Feeling pretty good hope, or cautiously optimistic was basically what he said.
I don't see a need to play him right now if you don't absolutely need, especially now that you're through Utah.
Right.
I think with the guys they have right now in the backfield, you can get through Oregon State and BYU. I don't see any.
There's no reason to rush him back anyway because
it's
a double deal. He's got 2 knee surgeries. You can't. And they've got to take every bit of time they can with him. And I still think, and that's a hard part for them because I think he's their best back. But at the same time, Davion Smith missed some holes. But he ran hard. Ty Isaac didn't miss as many holes, but didn't really run hard to me. In my, when I watched it, I think if you get Drake Johnson healthy, then you got a pretty good situation going on. But again, if he blows his knee out for a 3rd time, he's never playing again. So, what are we doing here? At some points, it's worth to take your time. So I don't know. I mean, could he play? He was dressed. He took full part in warm-ups at Utah. Traveled, did the whole shot. He's practicing, but I think they're still hesitant on bringing him back. If he doesn't play this week, I think he's back at BYU. But maybe he plays this week a little bit. I don't know.
Sure.
What was it, last November? So it's about that time.
Yeah.
I think that he's
in the
a fast
window.
healer, so you're right in that time. So it probably could be any week now. I mean, I would think it's just a matter of how he's feeling on the day, I would assume.
It'll be very interesting to see what happens when he does come back, because I don't think anyone expected the running back rotation that was seen at Utah. And where Derek Green goes from here is sidebar $1 million.
Well, that is interesting to me because that's a fair sidebar to go on because this was the #1 ranked running back in the country in 2013, and here we are.
And the #1 rusher on this team last year.
Yeah, and he got on the field after Ross Douglas at Utah. And I think I've heard Jim Harbaugh mention Derek Green's name like 1 time since he's been the coach in Michigan. I don't want to read too much into stuff, but I think it's fair to read into he's got a long way to go to make up.
I would think so.
Whatever ground. And I mean, he's not even close to the level of Smith and Isaac, who weren't perfect. And it wasn't like it was a situation where, and Harbaugh said it 10 different times on Thursday night, we're going to go with the guy that runs hard. Davion Smith continued to run hard the entire game, so I'm not, he had some vision issues, but at least he kept his legs going. So he's going to stay in. other guys, but which tells me that other guys weren't doing that. So
It's hard,
judge it how you
hard
will.
to tell.
I
Yeah,
don't
I mean,
know.
I even after one game, I have no idea what to read into what on that, but it's a thing. It's a problem.
A couple offensive line questions. If the offensive line continues to struggle, will they open the offense more? I don't really. That's a tough one. And then the other one would be,
Will they open the offense more?
is it time to worry about the offensive line? Will they open the? I don't know how you can. I mean, but at the
I
same
don't
time,
think it's time to worry about anything.
no, it's not time to worry about anything. But if there's a time,
team went 5 and
if there
7
would be a
last year.
time to be concerned about anything, though, it would be the offensive line because, as we said all preseason, it is time to find out what this group is. It has been together for a good chunk of time now. All these guys have played. You know, Glasgow's a 3-year starter. He looks good, so that's a positive. Kalis has started for parts of 3 years. Braden was a starter all of last year. His 4th year in the program. Magnuson, same thing. Cole started all of last year. So we got to know. I mean, it's they're either average or they're just gonna take a while to break bad habits, and that's what we got to know. So is it time to worry? I don't know if I would hit any panic buttons, but I mean, I would think it's certainly time to be, we got to figure this out because if you're going to continue to go out there and have guys just, like I said, stand straight up in the air, get blown back, there's a couple plays. There's one in the first half. I think it was the first half. It was a 4th or 3rd down and 3rd and short, and they're trying to run a power, and Ben Braden's trying to pull down the line, and he runs into 2 of his own guys because the whole right side gets washed out and slams into him, and the running back's he's just down on arrival. And I hear people say, well, if he bounces it outside, I'm like, it's just like, okay, well, if he straps on a jetpack and takes a dart for 7 yards to bounce it outside, then it's outside. But there's so many different times in that game where they get to the line, it's just a pile of bodies. It's a pile of bodies because you got guys standing straight up, you got guys thinking too much, and they just, they don't have a good feel for it. And I don't know, honestly, if it's your 3rd or 4th year and you don't have a good feel for it, are you ever going to have a good feel for it?
Yeah, right.
That's my question. If it's still the same thing, and we're sitting here and you've been in this program for how many years now it's been, and you still can't do it,
I kind of like this Rocketeer option, though.
put a jetpack on you, that will work out pretty well,
Might even be able to jump over Davion Smith. And
But the other problem is I don't know, like we said earlier, you going to start yanking guys?
No, I think it's fine. I mean, I don't.
Who's coming in here?
I don't think it was. Was it great?
I don't think Orlando Pace is on the bench, or guys like this. It's just. I don't think there's any better options.
I don't pretend to be, an offensive line expert. I'm not. That's not my Twitter bio. But
I just think it's an average group.
When I was watching it, I was not thinking like this is an abomination. There were mistakes made.
Utah was good too.
The first game of the year against a good defense. I just think, I know it's instant reaction to everything, but like I said, I mean, I would start making sweeping judgments like that until
we have to see how they
BYU.
do in terms of growth, in terms of fixing mistakes.
I think they're going to be all right.
The offensive line. I mean, I don't think they're ever going to be elite. Is ultimately, I shouldn't say average. I said that earlier. That's probably. I think they could be above average, but I don't know if.
But it's always been a problem, and since I've been here, when people were ready to string up Coach Funk down in the middle of Main Street. Since I've been here, the line's been an issue, and that was even when they had NFL.
There's a lot of reasons for that.
On there,
youth.
It's going to take. Yeah, these guys are veterans, but guess what? They were a veteran line when Taylor Lewan. There were bookend tackles that are currently in the NFL. There were still issues there, so it's going to take a minute.
It continues to be the guards. I mean, I think also you got a situation where Brady Hoke recruited a bunch of tackles. He tried to turn them into guards, and Ben Braden is not a guard. And he's one of their best 5, but he's not a guard, and I don't know what else you do. But you can't put him at left tackle because, my God, he can't. One 300-pound lineman makes one shimmy swim move on him, and he's falling down, and it's. Hey, look out! I mean, so.
And people do forget this is a group that lost its center.
But that's the core of the line. The good part is you have a center who knows what's going on. Your pass protection was, I thought, terrific for the most part because that's Graham Glasgow understanding, slide this way, slide that way, understanding the protections and getting everyone in the right spot. That is a very big plus. That there weren't any blow-ups in terms of guys just getting teed off on, but you're just not getting any push, and that's. In this offense, when Harbaugh wants to just tighten the chin strap and just start beating the crap out of people, it's going to take a while.
But how many times last year was it? Everyone loved to say Baumgardner was holding on to the ball too
He
long
was.
and this and that, and he did.
Yeah.
But let's not act like there weren't many times
No,
where
he was running for his
before
life,
he even
yeah.
got to the end of his three-step drop,
Harbaugh said this the other
it
day.
was all hell had already broken loose in the backfield.
Harbaugh said that the other day. He said, I get tired of listening to these commentators talk about happy feet and this guy's taking too long in the pocket. And he goes, well, forgive the quarterback, but if you get hit in the face 10 times
Right.
in the course of a game, you might ask Christian Hackenberg how that feels.
Yeah, right.
If I'm going to get decked every time I come back here, I mean, forgive me, but that's going to play a bit of a role in how I handle myself in the pocket. So, again, that's an improvement.
It's going to take some time.
We'll see how the run game.
Yeah.
Again, it's just the week 1 to week 2 improvement under Brady Hoke. We almost never saw steady improvement from week to week. The mistakes were always there. It was just a matter of were they horrible this week or were they pretty bad.
That's still TBD if that's.
And now it's
fixed.
Harbaugh with his staff, a staff that everyone believes is superior. Obviously, how much can you get improvement from week 1 to week 2? I think that'll be a pretty telling deal.
You've got 4 minutes for quick hitters out of these Twitter questions.
Let's go. Okay, let's see. When will Peppers play on third down? He's the best athlete on the field, so why is he on the sideline? Again, I think it's too early to start panicking on that one or pushing. And I think they also wanted to make sure that Jabril Peppers was completely comfortable with playing defense because he has a pretty unique role. He's responsible for a lot. He was on the field every snap. I thought he played pretty well.
Yeah.
At the end of the game, I thought he played very well in the second half. He returned a kick. He was a block or two away from popping that one into something.
I think he.
I think maybe let him settle in
One
first.
thing we've said since for the 2 years I've been here is they didn't have defensive playmakers,
and he is one.
And he
made some mistakes, but he is a
happen.
playmaker. I don't know.
There's
what else to
tackles
say.
that he made in the backfield where he was showing burst that I haven't seen around here at all.
That's not fair. It wasn't fair. There was two different receiver screens where the defensive back is basically taught go blow the block up and let your other guy come in. And Pepper said, I don't need to do that. I can just juke around this guy and go just shot out of a cannon, laser. I mean, like that. Nobody can do that. That's really tough to do.
Yeah.
And that is a special football player.
Those were arm tackles. The one he just threw the guy down.
He picked him up and tossed him. Right. I mean, and that was again like by the time he reads the play immediately because he's also smart, which he's a great athlete and he's a very bright kid. So he reads the play before it even starts, and by the time the receiver come down to get any kind of contact on him, he's already swum around it. I mean, and he just blows the thing up. So those are instinctive plays, athletic plays. He is a playmaker. They used him in the blitz packages quite a bit, and he didn't get home on any of them, but it was still, some of those were pretty impactful. He forced a sack, forced quarterback back in, he saw him coming off the edge. Over time, that's going to get better. I would say let him, Jabril Peppers playing on offense wasn't going to win them that game. So let's not jump any guns here. I think let him get more comfortable on defense in that pretty unique role. If I were me, I would rather, that's what I would do because I would want to use him as many ways as I could on defense because I think he's pretty special.
Yep.
So,
yep.
That's about all we got.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's it. So I guess the next time we'll be back rambling into a camera with no one behind it will be Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
Following Michigan's home game versus Oregon State. So until then, thanks as always for watching. For Nick, I'm Brendan.